Okay, I'll see you shortly. All right. Okay. Sounds good. Hey guys.
Hey,
Um, I have so Becky is having some technical issues, so she gave me temporarily her credentials to get our meeting started. Uh, she's having to like reinstall it on her computer. So anyway, all right. 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. So this is it for tonight, right? Because we're just missing George and April.
Yeah.
We said they were not able to join today. All right. So never mind my Becky Torres name. I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 6:34. And I think Becky's just gonna join us as soon as she gets Zoom up and running on her computer, but you never know how long that takes to reinstall stuff. All right, so why don't we get started with reviewing minutes from August 12th. And Susie sent these out last week, if memory serves. And has everybody had a chance to look at those? Any questions or comments? Okay. I don't see any hands. Oh, Kathy, go ahead.
Just one thing, Susie, I'm not sure if you saw my email
No, I did.
earlier today. I only had a question in section 3 regarding the town administrator position. I'm not familiar with calling the situation that exists a contract at will. I'm more familiar with saying that that employee is an employee at will. Am I splitting hairs?
No, I think
they
that
two
is what it's called. You're right.
Okay.
So I'll
Okay.
fix that.
Otherwise, it looked good to me.
Okay. I wonder where my
Right.
mail went. Okay, good.
Susie, one thing, I know that you have a couple different email addresses that I think lately you've been using the same one, right? Do you want to just let the whole group know which email address they should use for you? Is it the one? Is it the one that you send the meeting minutes from?
Yeah, that would
Most
be
recently?
fine. That'd
Okay,
be
got
fine. And that's probably what happened. And because I didn't see anything about April and George. So I just need to remember to look at that one more often.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think April's email was just from this morning, I believe. Yeah. Okay, so I don't see any other hands, so I'm gonna make a motion to approve the minutes from August 12th as amended.
Second.
Okay. All right. So what's our vote order going to be today? Bob, you want to get us started?
yeah, Bob Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Salvador, I.
All right.
Okay. All right. Minutes are approved. All right. Let's close that out. I'm trying to think, what can we discuss that might not be? I'm trying to think which of our agenda items is sort of less pertinent to Becky.
Maybe our meeting
she's
with the
yeah,
school.
the superintendent. Yeah. Okay, so Susie and I had a meeting to meet a meeting with the new superintendent of the regional school district. When was that? That was about a week
Friday.
and a half. Or was it? Was
Yeah.
it just Friday? Okay.
Well, no, not the.
No,
just
no, it was
Friday.
right a week ago Friday. Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's and just for everybody, I think you all know we superintendent I think believe started on July 1, if I'm not mistaken. So she's really kind of brand new. She also has moved to our area from the Virgin Islands, so a big relocation for her. I thought it was a really positive meeting. Susie, I think you can kind of fill in some of the details. I will say that kind of my sense when we came into that meeting was that I don't think she quite knew sort of like what our objective was, and I think she seemed to me to feel pretty at ease by the time we wrapped up. That kind of our goal was really just to um, kind of encourage her to get an early start on fiscal planning for FY26, to offer our support in kind of working with her and our counterparts at the other towns. We did spend probably more time than I would have anticipated talking about the regional assessment method issue, in part because I kind of wanted to get that on her radar, and also she seemed interested in it. So we talked kind of, we sort of kind of presented our understanding of the kind of history of it and our position. And as a follow-up to the meeting, I sent her, if you guys, well, those of you who've been on the committee for a while may remember that Susie and I did a little bit of kind of historical sort of archive work, kind of detailing the history of the regional assessment negotiations, as kind of when this was a particularly kind of top of mind issue for the committee. And we had prepared a timeline document, which is something that we shared with the committee, we discussed with the committee. I did send that to her as a follow-up, just so she could have that, if she wanted to learn more. And what else, Susie?
Yeah,
She did say a few. Yeah.
She talked about the budget. She says it's a process, not a thing, but she is having it audited. And I don't know, whether that was in the cycle, or I didn't really have a sense of that, but she's relying on having an audit to help make clear what's there and what, maybe that will give her a better view. So
Yeah.
her, administrative assistant, Nibe Douglas, I think her name is. She has a fair amount of expertise in budgeting, so she's happy to have somebody close by to help her look at the auditor's work and the budget that they're looking at. She I mentioned that part of the process has the factor of having so much turnover with town council, school committee, other offices, and that was part of the reason of giving her, as far as I felt, that was part of the reason of giving her a background for the assessment method. Because when we go to a 4-town meeting, we run into people who have no history on it and they want to start on this day. And we want to sort of keep track of the history of how we got to that assessment method. And so I feel like giving her that background helps her deal with the fact that other people don't know.
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I want to say is he does seem to have a kind of orientation towards wanting to sort of create kind of more efficient teams, and I think that may mean that she's inclined to look for and find sort of areas of redundancy in the kind of central administration. Susie mentioned that she's said that she was going to be doing an audit of the kind of budget team and process. She apparently has done something similar with the human resources kind of division within the central administration. And I believe that there was an article I read suggested that she reported to the Amherst School Committee that there were two people that had sort of director roles that weren't kind of seemed to have overlapping responsibilities. That has been reduced to one person. So I think, she seems to be wanting to make kind of a good faith effort at kind of removing as much sort of redundancy and inefficiency as possible in, I think, areas of central administration, which may produce, some probably not like huge dramatic savings, but some savings that we'll learn about in the coming months. I guess while we're on this topic, I'll just mention that the regional school committee is meeting tonight. It's their first meeting in, I think, quite some time. And there are two items I saw on the agenda that are very relevant to us and our concerns about the budget. One of them is that they're meeting with a woman named Tracy, I assume it's a woman, Tracy Novick, from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, I think. Is that MASC? Is that it? Yeah. And this is a woman who I guess is the field director from that organization. And from her bio, I could see that she has kind of area of kind of specialization is around funding issues, budgeting issues. So they are meeting with her tonight, or she's giving some kind of presentation. They have a pretty comprehensive list of questions for her that they posted to their agenda. And, a number of them seemed quite interesting. They were, let's see if I can share my screen. All right, can you guys see this document?
Yep.
Okay, let me make it a little bigger. All right, so these are just, I guess, there don't seem to be any particular order, and there are quite a bit here, so I don't know if they're going to get through all of these questions. But I think you get a sense of what it is they're going to be discussing tonight. So what I wanted to tell you all is that I am going to, at some point in the next week, I'm going to watch the recording of their meeting tonight, and I will make sure to take detailed notes, particularly from this presentation, and I will share that with the committee, and it'll include a link to the YouTube recording if you guys want to watch it yourself. But I think this, I guess I was pleased and interested to see this on their agenda for tonight. I wonder, some things that interested me was, I guess, this seemed like an interesting question. I wasn't quite aware of this, but I read this as an indication that the school committee was kind of unclear and maybe even upset about some of the staff reductions decisions that were made by the superintendent coming into this school year. And this question seems to indicate that there might be some confusion about what role school committee is supposed to play in making those kinds of decisions about like sort of where to actually make cuts that might be required by budget. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. I wasn't aware that was an issue. Bob.
Thanks. I just wanted to make a
Hmm.
remark. Comment,
Yeah.
which is that here we are in August 28th, whatever today is, and we've already met several times this summer. And we're going to be working very assiduously, I believe, to put a budget together, which is some fraction of the regional school budget. And here they are having their first meeting of the regional school committee. I mean, I really think maybe someone should just encourage them to work harder on this, because here they are admitting that they didn't even know what was going on between them and the superintendent or the financial director of the region. And I think that this is reflected in what we get for a product, that there's not, maybe it's because of the turnover in the school committee, maybe there's other reasons that I can't say now, but it seems to me pretty clear that they need to work on this more, or somebody does, to
Yeah.
prepare their budget.
Mm-hmm. Susie.
I think it's also important to remember that these are volunteers. And you get what you get when you get volunteers. And in the turnover process for electing and blah, 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 you end up having to go back over stuff and figure stuff out. And I mean, I feel like we're lucky to have a fairly consistent population on our FinCom, but they do not have that. And then the other thing is I feel like that question is very relevant, because I think that was part of part of why it was hard last year. And we had an interim superintendent who also was probably overseeing some of the budgeting. So I feel like there's lots of reasons to see what happened, and I'm glad they're raising these questions. And I feel like some of the questions are being raised for the new people involved. And and now we have a new superintendent. So I think they've
Yeah.
done a good job to bring in somebody to help them. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is a good first step compared to what got going on last year. And remember that
Oh, yeah.
it was January when a lot of the turnover happened.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's messy, and I think small town government is messy.
Mm-hmm. I should mention that there's a second item on tonight's regional school agenda, which is a discussion item that is labeled, this is exactly how it reads on their agenda, for towns meeting dash budgeting process dash September. So it sounds to me like they are going to have a conversation about potentially putting together a four towns meeting in September. That's how I read that item. So I hear your frustration, Bob. On the other hand, I kind of feel like I'm at least I'm happy to see that they're spending a significant amount of their time, at least at this meeting tonight, on the budgeting issues. So it does seem like they are motivated to kind of work. To work on this soon and to spend a significant amount of time on it. So anyway, that's the deal. I will I'll share some notes with you all. I'm gonna on both of those agenda items when I get a chance to watch the meeting, which will probably happen hopefully sometime this week. Okay. Anything else on regional school budget process? I think you saw, I also forwarded you all, maybe you didn't get this, Susie, since it sounds like you didn't get some of the emails. Pelham has written a letter in some ways similar to the town of Amherst letter to the regional school committee, citing some budget concerns. And I think in some ways it was pretty similar to Amherst letter. It says that They're urging the school committee to, quote, adhere to budget increases in the traditional 2.5% range. Though we understand that will be challenging and may entail difficult decisions. So anyway, just wanted to keep you all in the loop that the region is kind of hearing a similar message from Pelham as well. Bob?
Yeah, I just wonder whether we should be drafting a letter representing our views, because, again, just to return to what I was mentioning a little earlier, we have a different role than the school committee does, and we all play our own role in this process of building the budget. And our role is that of fiscal managers and, representing the taxpayers' interest. Their role is to represent the school and work with us to develop a budget that is affordable, that will pass town meeting, that will be acceptable to the other the other three towns. And so we have to work together, but our role is to remind them that we have certain budget targets that have to be met, and we have to sort out, and they have to help us sort out priorities, because we can't just address every single need that they detect. So I think that John Trickey's letter was excellent, and I thought it was extremely nuanced and represented the whole picture pretty well. I don't see why we couldn't do something like that. Maybe not right now, but
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, Bob, I think what I would say is I would like us to prepare, assuming there is a four towns meeting in September, right? We're going to want to enter that meeting with a statement, whether it's something that we actually share with the region or it's a set of talking points for us to have in our back pocket. One way or the other, I think we should discuss probably at our next meeting kind of what are the key points that we want to communicate
An excellent idea.
at that
We'll find out about this
yeah.
meeting, the idea.
So again, it's on their agenda tonight to at least discuss the process and a potential meeting in September. So I'm assuming I will have an answer to that, when I get a chance to review their recording from tonight. Okay, but I agree. I think in the past, particularly when assessment method was a much more controversial issue, I felt like we often spent time in our committee meetings prior to those four town meetings, really writing down a set of talking points, and I found that was really useful, and it helped us all kind of communicate a consensus position for our town. So I think we should do the same thing. Jim.
Well, if we do write a letter, we could practically copy and paste everything that John Trickey said. It's a really great letter, and he covers everything from residential being taxes completely from coming from our school, coming from our local population.
Taxes,
I mean, it's just all the issues are there, and he really spells it out. He really spells it out well.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be pretty easy to just follow the format that he's laid out and make the same points. Becky, you were trying to say
something. I think he was about to say, we do not need to return to the alternative formula. I mean, I think his points lead to the conclusion that it's time to drop what Shutesbury's been lobbying for years. So I'm not of the same mind that all those points, I mean, they only lead to backing out on Shutesbury and no longer having an equitable assessment is the way I read the letter. So I'm not seeing it as in the same light, Jim.
Becky, I guess I missed that because I didn't take that away from that letter myself.
He sort of walks up to that and sort of
and then he stands there, he looks at it and
sounds
he's like
he's gonna go there,
but
he doesn't actually go there. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
But he
so,
sets it all up. His argument is all right there. He sets it up.
yeah,
That's in
I'll just
paragraph 2?
highlight that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's this,
yeah,
let's see, it is right. Already, the town of Pelham has to adjust to the transition to the statutory method of assessment from the regional agreements enrollment-based method, which has entailed 4% increases. So yeah, I mean, that sentence suggests that maybe there were a couple more sentences that were in a draft of this that maybe got dropped. I don't know, but yeah, it does sound like we should be prepared. I guess maybe
Yeah.
that's the point. We should be prepared for this conversation or for potentially Pelham to propose a return to the enrollment method.
Yeah.
Let me just say a little background on
Yeah,
that.
Bob.
First of all, they just are building a affordable housing complex right now in Pelham. And I had talked to John about a lot of things last year before we put our final budget together. And he's anticipating that when that project is complete, it'll change the math for them in terms of the statutory method in their favor. So I don't think that he's really anticipating fighting against the statutory method. On the contrary, I think that he believes the statutory method will actually serve the interest of his taxpayers going forward.
Interesting. Is this development going to be like owner occupied units, or are these rentals?
No, they're rentals, I believe. And I
Okay.
think it's going to be, I'm not sure what the numbers are, but it's quite a few units that will be their target customers, if you will, are going to be people who are limited incomes, and those that have families will be given some consideration ahead of others. So
Right.
I think that
Yeah.
because of the absence, it has automatically going to reduce their average household income when that place is occupied.
Yeah. Right. So just for maybe this will be helpful for Kathy. This statutory method has two wealth-related factors that are used as part of the calculation for determining kind of what proportion each town is going to contribute to the overall assessment required. And one of those relates to like median household income, and the other relates to property values, like I think I forget what they call the equalized home value or something to that effect. Essentially an average home value. So I think, Bob, you're right that, at least one of those factors, it sounds like, might, change significantly for Pelham if this development is going to have a number of residents. Susie.
and they have new growth in housing. I think it's hard to know from here where we really are at. Shutesbury has some new housing coming in. So we will think about it and we'll work on it, but we don't know some of the pieces yet. And I can't imagine why Amherst isn't rolling in new growth money. So actually, I think I need to find out, because there is building everywhere. So it's new tax dollars coming in for them, tax revenue. So I think Pelham will be happy to have more kids from their town in their school. That will help that issue. And their EQV will go down. That'll help their formula, and they have new buildings. So we'll have to see.
Okay. So stay tuned. I hope to have some updates for you in the next week. All right. I think what I'll do is now pull up. So I should have made this clear in my email today. I sort of took a very rough first crack at our budget request letter. And I will share that now. I certainly don't want to suggest that we're locked into any of these changes. I just wanted to get us kind of started on the process of kind of developing a new letter. So this is really something we need to kind of collectively draft. So just to get us started, here's the budget letter. Kathy, just for your information, this is kind of how our budget process begins. We send a letter to each of the department heads requesting a proposed budget, in this case for FY26. So there's a corresponding budget form that we'll look at in a second. And so the typical process is that they return their budget forms to us by the end of October, and then we begin a kind of a calendar of every one of our meetings. We typically would then meet with one or two department heads to discuss their budget proposal, ask questions, have them discuss any significant changes, either positive or negative, in their new proposed budget. It's an opportunity for us to ask them questions, seek clarification, and then we'll do that with every department head. But basically between now and roughly February, and then we at that point we'll start to actually utilize their proposed budgets to look at a proposed budget for FY26, and which we will eventually have to vote on whether to recommend approval of or not. So that's the process. So I guess I'll just I don't know how not sure how we'd like to do this, but I just made kind of some changes really to just the first two paragraphs, which are usually our little sort of preamble. So I just said, looking back, FY25 was a challenging fiscal year. Our annual operating budget increased by almost 4.5% over the previous fiscal year. This was a significantly larger increase than we have experienced in recent years. Despite this, our budget-related articles were passed with only a small number of dissenting votes at annual town meeting. Faced with a number of financial challenges, we must continue to communicate and work together. To that end, the Finance Committee will again assign one of its members to serve as a liaison to each department. That person will be a conduit between your department and the Finance Committee. If you have any questions about the budget process, we recommend you contact the liaison assigned to your department. So any comments, suggestions, additions, deletions, changes to these first two paragraphs?
I think it's great, AJ.
Okay, thank you. All right. Everybody's okay with this so far?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay. All right. The rest of the letter, I didn't really see necessarily a need for any significant changes. Let's talk about the third one. We commend departments for minimizing operating. This is basically unchanged from last year. We are asking you to present a level service budget for your department this year. This is our starting point. Please review the financial needs required for your department to maintain the current level of services you provide. Make note of changes that may cause a significant increase or decrease from your FY25 budget. So, I mean, I made an assumption here that we want to provide the same guidance that we have for the last few years. Is that, does anybody have any feedback about that? Bob? I think you're muted, Bob.
I want to raise an issue, which is that inflation has been a pretty serious issue for us and for every town the last few years. And I don't know what the numbers are shaping up to be for next fiscal year, but it seems to me that it's going to be above the normal 2.5% that we usually and historically have had to deal with in our budget process, which ended up being an overall increase of 2.5%. That is 2.5% for salaries and 2.5% for other anticipated expenses, would equals a 2.5% increase in budget for level services. Now, if we're going to have a greater than 2.5% increase in salaries, then we need to look at other ways to keep the budget within that 2.5%, if that's our goal, which I believe it is or should be. So how do we represent that in this letter to the department heads? Or do we want to? Because I think we should. I mean, there has to be an effort on the part of a department head to maintain some kind of fiscal restraint or something of discipline to, at the end of the day, don't we want a 2.5% increase next year so that we don't have to go have extraordinary methods? That is this so-called, I can't never remember, that's a tongue twister. The reserves of overrides or whatever it's called.
Mhm.
You remember what that term is, AJ? We dipped into it last year.
Oh,
Excess levy
yeah, excess
capacity.
levy capacity.
Excess levy capacity, correct, thanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't like that, and I think that the taxpayers deserve, the law is, and the spirit of the law at least is that 2.5% is the maximum we should raise taxes in a given year. So anyway, I'd like that as a goal for this committee. It may not be achievable. It wasn't. We had to work hard to minimize that excess levy capacity, but we did do that last year. We did have to do that, and some of the ways we did that were with money that's not going to be available, I believe, this year, because some of the money was from grant sources, I think, that are no longer available. But anyway, could we represent that idea in this letter? Is that something we want to do?
Susie, it's your hand up.
The 2.5 is a goal for the tax levy. We were able to raise the budget by 4.5 because there's revenues that come in not from taxes. So in the end, we haven't seen the recap numbers. We don't know if it went into excess levy capacity or not, because their new growth is a guess. And I think what we do know is that we're looking towards level services. And what we don't know is how the revenue is going to work its way out. It's too soon to know that. And I do feel that the departments have been very careful to not be to maintain those financial demands. And that's in this sentence. This is in the paragraph there, that they I can't find it right now, but that the departments do try really hard. And I do think we're a little flat-footed about inflation, and I don't know how that's going to get met, but it's too early to know. And so I feel it's legitimate to say we appreciate the way they work within the constraints, and we are reflecting town meeting's wish to work towards level services. And I think we can't go any farther with it right now, and it wouldn't be helpful, because they are being helpful already.
Right. I mean, I guess the only other comment I want to make is that I don't recall when the personnel board actually calculates its COLA increases. I believe that happens around January or February. I know, Kathy,
Yeah,
you're new to the. Is that right, Becky?
Yes, we have to wait for the January report to come out in the first part of February. George
Okay.
has it like on a tickler.
Right.
So you're right.
So I think, Bob, we'll have an understanding at that point, right, about what the kind of what the impact of inflation is going to be, at least on cost of living increases.
Well, I'm just trying to say, so I'll try to put it very bluntly. We are the finance committee. We're the watchdogs. We operate between the taxpayer and the town government, and we're trying to maintain we try to reduce the load on the taxpayers to the best of our ability while maintaining the services they want and they need. So I think it's important for us to represent our point of view, which is we hope to keep spending, to try to them to continue, to encourage them to continue to try to keep spending under control. So I'm not ashamed to say that's our role. Our role is not the same as being a cheerleader for the departments. Our role is to be the watchdog for town spending. That's really in our mandate. And I think it's proper and right that we take that position without being antagonistic. I'm not saying that. Just putting a note in there that we hope that they can help us maintain the growth of the budget. That's all, you know?
Yeah.
You want them to grow the budget?
No, to maintain control over the growth of the budget.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, I don't want to sort of descend into like a long sort of philosophical debate here, Bob. I mean, I think I have just a slightly different view of our role than you. I don't think our role is, I mean, in some ways one can interpret what you just said there as saying our role is to advocate for as small a budget as possible, right? I mean, and I think that may be your position, but what I would add to that is that I think our role is to sort of balance the impact of budget decisions on taxpayers, minimize costs. I think the kind of watchdog framing is totally appropriate, but I think we do have to balance that with the fact that our town supports a level of services that are currently being provided by our schools, our fire department, our highway department, et cetera, et cetera. And so, if our interest was to, simply gut the budget, and I'm not suggesting you're saying this, but to gut budgets, to get them as small as possible, I don't think that would be an outcome that is in line with our role, right? Because that would mean that it would have those cuts would have a significant impact on the kinds of services that the town seems to overwhelmingly support, and at least as reflected in how they vote, year after year on our budget related articles. So the only thing I would add to what you said is that I think I view our role as, looking after the taxpayer, reducing the impact on them while balancing the town's kind of stated interest in maintaining a set of services that they value. So, and to me, that the concept of a level service budget does exactly that, right? It suggests that they shouldn't be expanding, costs. They should be maintaining the same services that our town has essentially approved, this past fiscal year. That said, if you have a specific sentence you want to propose, you have the right to make a motion and suggest.
Well, I'd like to try to think about it. So I've got this document this afternoon, and I didn't look at it just before.
Okay.
But I'll tell you,
Okay.
I don't want to be misunderstood, but I do believe that there are checks and balances, and that we have a role that's different from simply advocating for town departments.
100%.
We want.
Totally agree.
I've been told by a number of town officials, including major departments, to say that they're happy that I ask questions, hard questions of them to defend their requests. I think that's our role, to ask questions, to have them justify their requests, because it's hard-earned dollars by many people who pay an extraordinary amount of their income towards supporting the system. And our average, our mean household income doesn't really tell the whole story. There's a lot of people below the mean, are in the medium. So, those people are paying a lot of their annual income towards this town government. I care about them, and I think that's what we all should. So,
I totally agree with what you just said. Yeah.
We have to care about everyone.
Well, if somebody is well off, they can afford a 2 or 5% increase in their taxes without breaking a sweat. But it might make a big difference to somebody who's not, that's my point.
All right, so, I think, for now, let's, I mean, I think this, what do people, Becky, I'd be curious about when you think we need to get this letter out. Would it
October
be,
1st. Yeah, October 1st is great.
so,
Just to get it
Bob,
back.
yeah, so Bob, I think what I'd like to do is maybe set as an agenda item at our next meeting to approve this letter.
Okay,
So if you have, something you want to propose, some language, maybe you could, kind of draft that between now and then, and then bring it to the meeting, and we can look at it and
okay, great.
discuss it, vote on it. Susie?
Last year, we got I got the budget forms and the letter out to departments on September 19th.
Okay.
And we need to do that because they have to work on the budget and get it back to us by the end of October.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, and there's some few other things to talk about, but that's the history.
Yeah. So
Morning,
I
Ray.
think what that means is kind of our deadline will be to have a finalized letter at the end of our next meeting, the 10th, which I think will be on the 10th. And that'll put us in a good position to to get this out to folks. It does take a little bit of time because we those budget forms that department heads get they're pre-populated with the specific numbers on their FY25 amounts, and that's very important to see that represented next to their proposed FY26 numbers. So I think if we wrap this up at our next meeting, I think we'll be okay time-wise. Susie?
And so I will start the pre-population. I guess I'll check in with Becky about how final the final numbers are.
Okay.
And I can do the pre-population. Then we're only having to copy the letter and attach it to everything and get them in the emails. And it takes a while to do all those emails and get them out to the thing. So I will
Yeah.
have them pre-populated before then.
Okay, I really appreciate it. Okay. Bob?
Yeah, just on the following paragraph on capital planning, I'd like to ask you and Becky both.
Yeah.
My recollection is there's a slightly different process than the final request has to be at the latest of February 1st. But normally we ask for submissions well before that. Isn't that so?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we should represent that initial time when we expect these requests to come in. The deadline for all requests was February 1st, but the initial,
Was, I think, November 1st?
yeah, so we should have that.
Okay.
That
All
should
right.
be amended that way.
So can I just say, change this to November 1st? Is that reasonable?
Yeah, yeah.
But you have to mention that the cutoff, a firm cutoff of February 1st exists in the bylaw.
All right, so capital requests, how about if I say should be submitted to the capital planning committee by
November 1st. And then say final
November
cutoff,
1st?
something like that, yeah.
By November 1st and no later than February? That,
And will not be accepted past February
okay,
1st.
yes.
Yeah,
I
okay.
would mention the
Will
I would
not-
just put in parentheses, as stated in the bylaw.
Yeah,
So people understand that it's
Okay.
not just a policy for this short term or
Okay.
something that we're making up today.
All right,
But
all
a
right.
firm-
And, all right. And as stated in our bylaws, will not be accepted past February 1st? Something like
Right.
that?
Yeah.
Okay, Bob,
that
does that
sounds,
work?
yeah.
Okay,
There is a line in there. It says the budget request form has a section to note any capital requests. And that's part of how the liaisons help focus the departments
Yeah.
on making that. So that's the one that comes in by the end of October. If you want to state it again, then you can do that, but the
Mm.
process used to be that it was a part of being aware of it through
Right.
writing out their request and including their capital, being encouraged to understand their capital items.
Yeah. Well, in my experience on the capital planning committee is the details of their requests were like we're too we're too lengthy to actually include in those budget forms. So sometimes they would just put like a phrase, and then of course the capital planning committee would get like a packet that explained what they were requesting and would have the documentation of quotes and that sort of thing. Okay, the only other thought I had just occurred to me is maybe at the bottom of this letter, should we actually include a list of the liaison roles, since we know who those are? Okay, so maybe I'll add. I won't waste our time doing that now, but since we voted on those, I think 2 meetings ago, maybe last meeting, I can't remember when.
2 meetings ago.
We can actually, we can include that at the bottom of the letter. Okay, Susie.
And then in terms of the scheduling, I think we learned something last year. We had highway up first, and Steve ended up submitting a second highway budget later. I think we might do better if we ask, here's a suggestion, we ask the financial team people to come early and give, because the year unfolds and people that have a lot of capital and stuff like that might need a little space. So where did I put that? Here it is. Yeah.
So I don't know if you saw this, Susie, but I did pull up, I did kind of create a tentative
Yep, I saw
schedule,
that.
but all I did was just list the dates and then essentially cut and pasted the
Right.
same order that we had last year.
Right.
But yeah, we should shuffle things around that.
And the other
where it
thing
seems
is
appropriate.
last year we started on November 14th. So I don't
Right.
know if it'll make much of a difference to the treasurer, assessor, accountant, and collector, whether it's more than a week early. But those guys could come first. And the library, I think.
Susie, I'm
Yeah.
sorry for cutting in, but the financial team typically is waiting for information to put into their budgets. You know, Ryan's waiting for health insurance to firm up. There's usually they're waiting on software updates and how much those are going to be. And the issue that happened with Steve was he had been hired October 1st.
Yeah, right.
So that is an odd situation. Typically, the highway department, you want to try to schedule as earlier because once winter hits, you might not get them back in there. You know, you could have no snow that year, but it becomes a problem. I've had to cancel a lot of highway and move highway around once you get into December and on. So I guess I'm just saying I don't think your logic holds up on the long term. Although it would have been helpful last year, but I don't believe our financial team is as flexible as you might think.
Okay, one thought, Bob, I see your hand up. I'll get to you in just 1 second. Is I also I was unsure about whether to include November 5th on this schedule. So we may decide that we want to start our meetings on November 19th, but I wanted to at least include it in the draft in case folks thought it would benefit us to start on the 5th. Bob.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Becky said. First of all, that that obviously Steve was brand new to the job and I went to see him just before that meeting, and he basically just resubmitted what Tim had. So he wasn't ready to do it because he was just brand new to his new responsibilities. But he also came back to us and met with us again to revise it more than once. So we're always amenable to that. It's not ideal, but if circumstances change, we can adjust by having him appear again if something changes in his request. So I don't have a problem with him meeting on, early part of our process, the 19th or so. I just got to make sure I speak to him. He's been a bit hard to get a hold of lately.
Yeah. Becky, do you think the 5th is just going to be too early for any of our departments, or
I
you
think
think
people
we-
might be reeling from when's the election? It's the 6th?
The 5th,
No, the
Oh, it is the 5th.
election is,
the 5th, Tuesday,
Oh,
the
you're,
5th.
you're right.
we can't hold, you
Okay,
should
so-
not hold a
So
meeting
this
on
is
election
definitely
day.
not gonna, that certainly makes sense. All right, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna move everything down. Okay, well,
Perfect.
that answers that. We're not meeting on the 5th. Okay. All
And
right,
then we're trying to hold a special town meeting between the 5th and the 26th, I think.
okay,
So that'll be FinCom activity too.
okay. And remind me what's gonna be the main agenda for that? Will that
There's a
The,
few things. We have the
PPA.
$25,000 fund for the police. We have potentially a vote on non-resident voting. And
Mhm.
there's potentially money will have to be voted for the second audit that we need to do this year.
Got it.
And
And
there's a
also-
couple other things I can't remember.
Will we have
What,
to,
would one of them be the CPA request for the
Yes,
track?
yes.
Potentially, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
will the teacher contract affect the money?
No. The teacher contract is almost 100% settled and will not be, it'll be settled in the next day, or was settled today.
But it won't require more funding than the budget has initially?
Correct. It could only, yeah, it couldn't settle without, yes, they're doing it within the money they have.
Great. Okay. All right. So somewhere in here, at one of these first couple of meetings, we're gonna have to discuss some warrant articles. But we're not exactly sure when that'll be. But so maybe it'll be on the 3rd, maybe it'll be on the 19th. But okay. So just in terms of order, does this do so, Susie? I don't. Are you comfortable now with beginning with highway, given Becky's explanation?
Yeah, and that Bob said we expect that people will come back if they need to.
Yeah.
Okay,
That helps.
So in terms of order, does this look right to folks?
Yes.
Is it on
Okay.
screen?
And Becky?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, nice. I'm on my phone.
Oh,
Look-
okay. So, so Becky, well, first of all, I should make sure I've got the right. I've got November 19th as our first date, and I'm assuming that's not a select board meeting because I just took, I just started this on the same 2 weeks cycle that we're on right now.
The cycle we're on right now is a normal select board meeting. Right, because
You said
we're meeting on the select board night tonight.
Oh, we are? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Then I might
remember
need to
we
change
couldn't
these dates.
meet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
so this
right.
is.
All right.
So
um,
All right. So
Can you forward us the dates and then I can help, because
Yeah,
I'll keep the order of the
Okay.
committees the same. I'll work on the dates once I get them from Becky.
Okay. So, but it's sounding like we probably will do I assume from that, we're probably gonna do this on the 12th, and then we'll go from there. But in any event, I'll leave it as is for now. Okay,
And
all right, so then yeah. So I think, I think we'll keep this order, we'll fix the dates. And then, I don't know, Becky, is there anything you can say at this point about when we might expect annual town meeting? Is it going to be a similar timing as last year, or?
Yes, yes. From what we know, we're gonna do, we're gonna again return to our amended bylaw date of the fourth Saturday in April. And that will bring us
26th. That's the
to
26th.
April 26th.
Yeah.
Wasn't it 20? Oh, it was 27 last year? Wasn't it the 26th?
It's not a leap.
That's creepy.
It's the 26th.
Okay. So that means we'll probably end up doing maybe a budget info session on Thursday, April 24th. I mean, tentatively, and we usually do it I think the last couple of years we've done it on the Thursday before annual town meeting.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to just leave this as is for now, but we'll fix the dates, and at some point we'll plug in, when are we meeting with the select board to approve warrant articles? When are we going to need to have an approved final budget, an approved annual report, and those details? But okay. So I think we're in good shape for getting a letter, a budget request letter, a schedule, and a budget form out shortly after our next meeting.
So when is our
Um,
next meeting? Because of funniness?
Yeah. Yes. So let's figure that, because I totally
27.
forgotten that we were screwed up. Okay.
It's either the
So
3rd
that
or
means-
17th. It's gonna be not the 10th.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
right. Not the 10th
So either the
or
3rd or
the
the 17th.
24th.
It might have to do with when the for town meeting is, because we would want to have a conversation more pointed about that. So
Mhm. Yeah. So I know it seems, but okay. So given that, should we just plan on meeting next week and getting back on? And maybe it's a short meeting, I don't know, but just getting back on schedule.
not
If we're going to do a
September
4
3rd.
towns.
September 3rd is the primary.
Oh yes, that's right. That's why we ended up meeting tonight, right? Okay.
Right, right.
We could
All
do
right,
the 4th.
so we can't
maybe.
do the 3rd. All right.
Does Wednesday the
All
4th
right.
work? Oh, yeah. 'Cause that's a
There's a number of other
Yes, it
meetings
works for
that
me.
night.
yeah, let's see.
I think there's
Okay,
a,
so and the 2nd is Labor Day. So okay, what about?
They're not on the schedule yet, but the Board of Health is on the 4th.
building committee and assessors are also on the 4th, but there's no assessors meeting, but there's, could be a building committee meeting. I'm not uncertain. Of course, it could be posted already. I can check.
Not-
I'm looking at the calendar. It's not on there. Just the Board of
Okay.
Health is on there. I wonder if we meet on the 5th.
Yeah, that it might have to be the 5th. Thursday the 5th. Does that work for folks?
Susie, what's meeting on the 5th? Can you see?
Nothing's on there now. I'm on the calendar.
Okay. That's might work.
Kathy, Bob, Jim, does that work for you guys?
Right, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, well, we'll see.
all right, I can make it work.
Try to make it work.
All right. So tentatively, we will meet on the 5th. And then the 17th. And then we'll be back on track. Okay. So at our next meeting on the 5th, we'll finalize the budget letter. We'll discuss potentially, you know, our position going to Four Towns meeting, which maybe hopefully that'll be happening sometime that month. And I think those will be the big items for that meeting. Okay, and just so everybody knows that I didn't make any changes to the budget form other than updating the fiscal year number. But I assume that form works. Did anybody see any need to edit or alter the budget form itself? I'm not even going to pull it up. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's that. So yes, if you want to make suggestions for a budget request letter, if you could write them out and bring those to our next meeting on the 5th, that would be great. The next thing on the agenda is an update on the teachers' contract negotiations. But Becky, I think you gave us the update, right? So it sounds like it's
almost
settled,
there.
right?
Well,
Okay, great.
I believe there, it goes through this process. They make a little this or that, and then it has to go back, and we're
Mhm.
waiting for it to go back and then come back and say final. So
Okay.
I think it's imminent. It's imminent.
Okay. But the I guess the important update that you shared tonight is that, as far as you know, it's working within the parameters of what was approved.
Yes.
For their FY25 budget, right?
Yes.
That's great. Okay, good. Okay, I don't have anything else on the agenda, but let me open it up. So Bob.
Yeah, I just want to ask you or Becky would probably know this. When is the new library loan gonna land on our budget?
I think it's basically a year after completion.
Right, so after
It's a rule of thumb, so whether it lands in 26 or 27, it should land in 26 if they can. Yeah, it'll depend on when the completion is, but it'll be the 26 or 27 fiscal year 26. I'm not, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
Not this year, but it'll be the following year unless we go in, past July and we're still finishing construction, then it'll likely go into 27.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Sure.
Any other business to discuss tonight? Okay, so I will send. I'll send an email to the committee and for George and April to make sure that the what do we say, the 5th? Yeah.
Mhm.
The 5th works for them. And Becky, you can let us know if there are any conflicts. Doesn't sound like there are, but if you learn
Yeah.
of something.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right,
pretty
Jim
sure
Hemingway?
there's a Concom meeting, but that should be all right. It's
Okay.
just if anybody else meets, Personnel Board rescheduled for the 29th. And if that meeting actually happens, then we should be fine for the 5th.
Okay. Jim Hemingway?
Just out of curiosity, what is the reason why we cannot have a meeting on voting day, especially this voting day coming up where it's going to hardly be of much consequence anyway? Is there a rule about that or what? Because I mean, it shouldn't really interfere with with our ability to be able to attend such a meeting? I'm just curious.
It happened originally because when it's too much for town hall, when we were all in person.
But we're not,
But then I know we're not in person, but we're still hybrid for some committees. And it's also with, there's people have split attention. We've just, the select board has just avoided any election days for their own meetings and for a special town meeting or anything, because you wouldn't do that because the town clerk is straight out. And it's at this point with just a Zoom meeting, yeah, you can have the meeting, but most people are, running around trying to vote. You don't want to keep people from voting if they're getting in from late, work late. And yeah, it's just practically, it's just a better practice for the community. It supports voting.
I would think since we all attend our Zoom meeting, that we're sort of independent of all of that. We wouldn't really it wouldn't really be a problem for us specifically. Maybe for other departments it would be, but well, I don't know. I'm just curious, that's all.
Susie?
Might be something that the select board would need to confer with us.
Mhm.
If there's enough reasons that change that they could think about it differently, but I would believe they would have something to do with it.
Okay, Bob?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second,
Right. Let's start off.
Groves,
A vote.
aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Closure, aye.
Salvador, I.
All right.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thanks for the progress.
See you in a couple
Thank you.
weeks. Yeah, or not.
Thank
couple
you.
weeks, but yeah.
A week. A week.
A week and a couple days. Yeah. All right, bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
August schedule once a week.
See y'all.